Well, welcome everybody to our Quick Collapse Awesomenicity podcast. Hannah and I are very excited to welcome the one and only Pam Harris as our special guest today. And Pam is a math educator, an author, a speaker, inspiring a lot of people around the world. It's so nice to have you here on our podcast.
Thank you so much. You know, I have math as Figure-Outable and you have awesomenicity. Did I say it right? Yeah. Great. I think great minds make up their own words, and there we go.
Yeah, it's so nice. I wonder, Pam, when people ask you how do you actually introduce yourself?
Yeah, so I like to tell a little bit of my experience as a math educator. I was a high school math teacher, and one day I was driving home from a conversation that I had just had with my kids' teachers, my kids' elementary teachers, and I was really concerned. No, I was troubled. I didn't quite know how to handle. They said to me, hey, we're getting the message loud and clear that we don't want to give kids math anxiety, so stop giving them timed fact math tests. They said, Pam, we don't want to give kids math anxiety, so we stopped giving them timed fact math tests. But now we're noticing kids don't know their facts anymore. And I thought, oh gosh, did you throw everything out with the time? Kids need to know their facts. But just like you, I also don't want to give kids math anxiety. So I'm thinking hard about it. I drove home. I drove up on my driveway, walked into my house, and I smelled something cooking. Means my kids home. And I said, hey, you're like in 4th, 5th grade. I'm thinking to myself, do you know your multiplication facts? So what I said to him was, I just chose one at random. And I said, hey, do you know your fives? I don't know why I chose fives, just at random. He looked me straight in the eye and he goes, no, unconcerned, whatever. And I panicked. I'm a math teacher mom. And I thought, if my kid doesn't know his multiplication facts, maybe none of the kids know their multiplication facts. And I was ramping. He could tell. He said, mom, you don't have to know your fives if you know your tens. Ladies, I said to myself, huh? I said, what? And he goes, you don't have to know your fives if you know your tens, as if repeating would help me. And I was like, dude, I heard what you said. I don't know what you mean. He said, well, I said, give me an example. He said, if you don't know 5 times 9, 10 times 9 is 90, and 5 is half of 10, so half of 90 is 45. And I said, good heavens, that is 9 times 5. Does that work all the time? Give me another example. He said, okay, how about 5 times 23? Not the example I'm thinking of. I'm wondering, does he know his single digit facts? But he's playing around with a pattern, a mathematical relationship that he could find 5 times anything. So 5 times 23, 10 times 23 is 230. 5 is half of 10, so half of 230 is 115. Y'all, then I had to go check to make sure that was 5 times 23. I never even thought about 5 times 20 and 5 times 3 as a way of thinking about that. I had always lined it up and done the thing, because to me, math was you waited till the teacher told you how to do it, and then you memorized what they gave you. Now, I thought through those steps, I was thinking about what steps to do when and which rule to do when. But I was always thinking about someone else's thinking. In that moment, I became really clear that the mental actions my kid was using, those mental actions, were not the same mental actions that my high school students were using. And I wondered, could we create what he was doing intentionally? Because let's be clear, he didn't have newfangled teaching. He had same old, same old. Mm-hmm. But for whatever reason, he was able to run into the same low dose of mathematical patterns that I do, that we all do in life. And he had kind of a natural proclivity or interest to pull those together and create connections and use those to solve problems, which created new connections and use those. And I was really aware in that moment that my high school students were not doing that. For the most part, they would listen to my rule and then they would mimic the procedure. And they would just it was a bunch of mimicking. I mean, I made it fun. I told stories and raps, rhymes, and all the things. But the mental actions were different. So I dove into research. And I read journal articles and research studies and everything I could get my hands on. And at the same time, I dove into my kids' elementary classrooms. And I said to my kids' teachers, may I enrich your students? Which was code for, can I experiment on them? And I just tried all the things. Like when I read all the stuff, I sifted through a lot of less helpful research because of my background in higher math, but I tried a ton of stuff and realized we can intentionally create those mental actions so that we and our kids could math the way that mathy people actually math. And the good news is, then we're all mathy people. So that's my journey. I started as a rote memorizer mimicker, and this kid blew my brain and set me on a path. And now I just want to give the world what I got late in life, which is we can actually reason, and those are the mental actions of mathing. You know, when readers read, or when we teach kids to read, they read. When we teach kids to write, they write. But when I was a kid, when they taught me to do math, I mimicked. I didn't actually, readers do the mental actions of reading, and writers do the mental actions of writing. Deborah Creighton has kind of coined readers read, readers read, writers write, mathers math. Yes. What does it mean to be a mather, and what does it mean to math? And anyway, so I'm excited to sort of bring what I learned late in life to everybody else.
That's so interesting, because I feel like you've described my childhood learning, and we carried the one and blah, blah, blah. And I had I just knew the steps to doing something. And I actually had no understanding of what was going on. But because I could memorize, I was successful in primary school.
And isn't it interesting that then you thought you were good at math, and you had probably classmates who didn't memorize well and thought they were bad at math, and neither of you were right.
Yeah. And the importance of speed. It's so funny how we're trying to get that shifting, and how if you can do it fast, that means you're even better than, it's, how did we get there?
It is fascinating. There is a correlation between fast thinking and fast. Yeah. Like it seems like it makes life a little easier to be quick, but there's a great quote that, I think I got from Joe Bowler. Ooh, I'm not sure where I got it from anymore. His name is Lawrence Schwartz, and I can't quote it exactly. He's a very proper looking, I don't know, maybe British, just the way he speaks sort of reminds me of a Brit. He says that he secretly thought of himself as dumb in the 11th grade because he was slower than all of his classmates. But then he took the measure of the situation. That's what makes you think he's British. I took the measure of the situation and realized that rapidity doesn't have a precise relationship with intelligence. Like being fast, rapidness doesn't have a precise relationship with intelligence. He said, I need to think deeply about things, and I'm a sort of careful, thoughtful thinker. And then at the bottom of the quote, it says, Lawrence Schwartz, the winner of the Fields Medal. Well, I didn't know what a Fields Medal was until I dove into the research. It's the award that you give a professional mathematician. So this is a professional mathematician who not only is a good professional mathematician, he's won the Fields Medal. That is the award. And he secretly thought of himself as stupid in 11th grade because he was slower than many of his classmates. That is just worth knowing.
Yeah.
Pam, it's funny. I don't know. I was reading something, and you actually came up and it talked about Pam is making math into conversations instead of calculations. And I think your story, I'm like, oh, that's exactly what I read about you. You're turning math.
Oh my gosh, I love that.
Yeah. That brings us to our next question, Pam, because I wonder,
I have to write that down. I can't I can't forget that. That is amazing.
Just what the internet says about you, Pam.
Do you know who said that? I want to give him credit. No?
Well, you know what? I should look it up, but
okay. You tell me later.
Because I'm I love it, because I feel that's what you just talked about. You're talking about math, you talk about your thinking. And I wonder, Pam, if you can tell us a little bit more about what do you actually, with this kind of approach of thinking, what do you think actually you bring to math education?
Well, I think I bring a vision of what's possible. And then, and it's very important because we need both of these, the vision of what's possible, and then let's actually get it done. And here are ways to do that. And my favorite way to do that is the instructional routine that I learned from Kathy Fosno and the folks at the Freudenthal Institute from the Netherlands, which is called problem strings. That's a favorite way. It's not the only way. There's other brilliant ways to get kids to have math be a conversation and not just about calculations. Oh, I love that. But it's a great inroad for teachers. It's a way that's harder to mess up. You don't tend to like try it and then, oh, that didn't work, and so then you pitch it. There, I like a really good rich task where we can have good conversations and bring the kids together and compare strategies and really dive deep. But those are hard, especially if we don't own the math. Like when I first started to try to teach what I call real math, I didn't own enough connections, but I could do a problem string. Because I could throw up a problem, ask people how they solved it, try to represent their thinking and ask, does this visual represent what you were just doing? No? Okay, help me like fix that. I learned, and then I could give the next problem and somebody would say, oh my gosh, those are connected. And I would say, tell me more about how are they? How do you see those as connected? And for the first many years, I wasn't sure how they were all not in the depth that people would see. And they would share how they were connected and I would learn while they were learning. It's a brilliant way for us to learn together. And then we have more connections. The students are obviously gaining more connections and we can all just math more together. I'm trying to remember what your question was. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. I think like you bring to mass education, right? And I think this idea of like connection, learning from one another, I think that's so interesting, Pam, because I feel like kids who have not learned to share their thinking or talk through their thinking. If you ask them what is 8 + 2, they say 10. I just watched a lesson like this today. And the teacher asked, well, how do you know? And he's like, because 8 + 2 is 10. And the child could not explain how they knew. And I think like that's a skill you learn to actually talk about your thinking. And I have different strategies and I can reason.
We have to have experience where it matters. It's not just like, I'm going to ask you and then give up on it and walk away. I have one more thing I want to add to what I bring to math ed, but I also want to share an experience I had last night. So fun.
Please do both.
And then bring me back to the one more thing I add. Short story, short. I missed a plane or I missed a connection and the flight got canceled and the gal next to me was on the phone with her sister speaking German. So I speak a little bit of German. My mom's from Switzerland. I played basketball in Switzerland for a while. So, it's been, I would definitely not consider myself fluent. But she asked me a question in English, but, I could tell it was her second language. And so I answered her in German and she just, the relief, she was like, oh, thank heavens, can we talk German? And so we spoke in German. I helped her get her, we had hotel night or hotel rooms that night, the whole thing. I helped her get to the place and to get her next flight and whatever. So we had this delightful conversation. Well, so she was coming to my hometown. So we got together last night for dinner. I got to meet her niece and 2 nephews. And so over dinner, in German, I played math with these kids. Oh, wow. And it was so fun. So I said, and I'll do it in English, but if 38 plus 10, what is that? And she lined them up and did the algorithm and she said, it's 48. And I said, okay, if 38 plus 10 is 48, what's 38 plus 9? And she lined it up and did the algorithm. And I kind of tried to like pause her a little bit. And she's like, go. And I was like, okay. So then she did that. And then I said, so that's interesting. 38 plus this number was 48. And then 38 plus 1 less. How are these? They're 1 less? And I had to ask her, how do you say that? My German's not that good, right? And then I said, how did these relate? She goes, 1 less. Do it again.
Oh, amazing.
and then I gave her 2 or 3 more problems. And by the end of it, we had her 4th grade brother. So she was 3rd, he was 4th. Adding 1 million plus 2 million, and then oh golly, I can do this 999,999 plus, and then whatever 1 less than 2 million is, and I we lined those up with all those 9s, and then he goes, it's just because it was 3 million, right? It's just 2 less than 3 million, and I was like, what's that number? And then he had to think about that, like that. Would you right now have to think about what's 2 less than 3 million? And what's brilliant is we need those experiences. We need the experience of thinking about what's 2 less than 3 million. And he was having it. And we were, so as you said, it's not trivial to put words to our thoughts. And boy, I was feeling that last night as I'm trying to put, German words to the thoughts and understand what they were saying. And it was brilliant. Yes, totally agree. Okay.
Oh, that's such a lovely story.
It was so fun. I warned the friend. I was like, you brought kids to this dinner, which means I'm going to interact with them more than you. Which it actually turned out to be. Dear. Anyway, she invited me to come visit in Germany. So, hey, let's do that. Woo!
That
Look at
is
that.
so nice. I
Isn't that
wonder
great?
if it's you. You would ask them math question during dinner. You know, what kind of friend did you bring to the table, Mom and Dad?
I mean, every time. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I won't push it. You know, if the kids like, and totally, I won't push it. But these kids were diving. It was great. Okay, so the other thing that I add to math education that I think is really important is there's very little of this work happening. I think there's a lot of us trying to get more conceptual understanding, more conversation. One of the things that's a bit unique for us at Math is Figure-Outable is we took really seriously if algorithms can trap kids into using less sophisticated reasoning than we could be developing, then what do we do? What is the math? How do we solve a subtraction problem? How do we solve division? If we're not going to repeat steps of the, you might be like, Pam, of course we're going to repeat those steps. Well, I began to ask the question, what if we don't? Could we not? If we don't, could we reason through all the problems that we might have to run into to solve that are reasonable to solve that a calculator? What would be the relationships we would need to own so that we could do that? And I offer to the world that there's really only a small set of major mathematical relationships that lead to a small set of major strategies that if kids own those, we don't need them to mimic steps of algorithms, especially today in the day of technology. One other thing.
You saying this, and I wonder, like, what is the purpose of math teaching then? Do we have to reinvent everything and shift our approach?
Well, so I'm glad you said that reinvent thing, because here's what I'm definitely not suggesting. I'm not suggesting that when a kid sits down to solve a problem, they reinvent everything, like everything on first principles up to solve it. No, they use what they know. So if they know something, they own it, they just use it and then build on that. So I'm definitely not suggesting that that we're bogging kids down. Of course, I want kids to have things at their fingertips. But mom, you don't have to know your fives if you know your tens.
Sorry.
So I don't need to spend time flashcarding fives. What I want to do is say, hey, to figure out this five, are you using 10? Okay. Well, what about pick any of your fives, 7 times 5? Or are you thinking about 70 and cut it in half? Well, then what happens when you get to 27 times 5? And now I want the kid to travel that mental path. I want them to say, well, I know 10 27s is 270. So then 5 27s would be half of 270. I don't know half of 270. Then I want to say, what do you know? And have your brain travel the mental path of figuring that out. And some kids will know half of 200 and half of 70. But you might be like, Pam, my kids don't know half of 70. Okay. What do they know? And do you know what's interesting? Often teachers will think that they'll go half of 200 and half of 60. But often kids will go half of 260 and then just then the leftover 10. But then I'm going to nudge them when I do that with them. I'm going to nudge and go, did anybody use 300 to take half of 270? I know we're doing this all in the air, which is terrible. Like it'd be better if we're writing some things down. Yeah, because often we might get the misinterpretation that, I should be able to hold all these in my head. Not so. It'd be much better if we were actually looking at these relationships, at least the numerals. So you didn't have to. I'm not trying to make math about speed or about how much working memory you can handle. So it'd be better if we were writing this down. But if I'm trying to take half of 270, could you use half of 300? And then if I say to kids, did anybody, in fact, I do this often when I do virtual sessions, did anybody find half of 300? Often people will go, no. And then I'll go, could you? And y'all, that's a really important move in that moment, because notice I'm not leaving kids with what they did. I'm now suggesting this is a major strategy. A major strategy is to go a bit over. So if you're trying to find half of 270, can you find half of something that's a bit too big, like half of 300? Half of 300 is 150. How much too much is that? And then you can sort of keep reasoning. And I won't do any more because we're holding lots of numbers in there. But the reason I bring that up is both the relationship I was playing around with dinner last night. Hey, 38 plus 10, can that help you think about 38 plus 9? 47 plus 100, can that help you think about 47 plus 99? Well, what about half of 270, can you use half of 300 to help you think about half of 270? Those are all over strategies. That's one of the major strategies that I would want to help building kids. And ladies, let me just tell you, I didn't know it at all. Like, I was a successful high school math teacher who had never thought over, ever. And so how fun is it now to have these conversations that's, it's worth talking about? Like, how are you thinking about it? And what are those major relationships?
And I think a phrase like "could you" is so simple, because I think sometimes as a teacher, you're like trying to get to the next question, but then trying to keep it open. And then like a "could you" is such a great example of a really easy question that then you can go off in many directions. Yeah, really cool.
Nice.
And even you telling the story, I felt like I could literally see the light bulb moment the kids had when they're like, what? And I feel like, when you do the math reasoning and you really try to figure it out, you get those light bulb moments. I feel like when kids just use a formula, it's like, okay, one, and here's another one. There's no excitement. But then all of a sudden you realize something and you're like, that's what you want to see in a math classroom, right?
Oh, I love that you just used the word realize. One of my favorite phrases is, what are you realizing now? Like, as we're working, because you're right. They own that. Like, what are you realizing? Ooh. And then when I say, could you, and a kid goes like, just sparks, then I go, hey, Eloise, tell us about that. And then the person's like, well, I didn't do that. I'm like, but tell me what you were just thinking. Well, I think that if 300 divided by 2 is 150, it's too much by 30. So I'd have to get rid of 30 divided by 2. That's 15. Is 150 minus 15 also 135? Yes. Then I'll tag that. I'll go, ooh, what do you guys think about Eloise thinking? Yeah. And notice it wasn't to begin with, but I'm giving them ownership there.
Yeah.
Like, what do you think of Eloise's over strategy? And then the class goes, ooh. Now you just had two things really cool happen. You have now like the spark. You're like, I had that spark, and then now I'm giving you ownership, and the rest of the class is ooh.
Yeah, now I feel great. I already love the stories about me.
And what an amazing environment you're fostering then in the classroom, because then you're giving students space to think, space to be incorrect or talk through their thinking, and then get to a different location. Like, that's really cool as well.
Let me mention one quick thing in that scenario. There is a potential that the rest of the class might go, oh God, that was really cool that Eloise did that. She's so smart and I'm not. So in that moment, I want to grab that moment. And I want to go, hey, everybody, did you follow Eloise's thinking? Did that make sense to you? You did? You have access to that? Ooh, send this message to your brain. I want my brain to do that next time.
That's nice. Yeah.
So I want to help kids have a real growth mindset message where they go, ooh, I have access to that. That was really cool. Okay, I want my brain to do that. Brain, I want to do that next time. Can you see how that sends your brain like a completely, see how we could go either direction in that moment. So teachers have real power in this moment to go, ooh, when you just went, ooh, that's because you understood what she did, huh? Yeah, see, you understood what she did. Nicely done. Okay, you want your brain to do that next time? All right. Ooh, that's a really important move in that moment.
It sounds so easy, right? Like, I listen to you and like, oh, it sounds so easy. I hope all teachers can do it. But then you go into classrooms and you can see how teachers are struggling with this, like, how to ask that question that sparks that kind of curiosity. And I wonder, Pam, like, if, new teachers, old teachers, any teacher would come to you and be like, yeah, that all sounds good, but I just don't know how to do it. Like, what would you tell them, Pam?
A few things. One, we do a lot for free online. And so dive in, join the Math is Figure-Outable community, and learn. We are all learning together. So a ton free. And then we also have a ton that you can join our teacher coaching program. I have online workshops. I have a brand new book that's just out, Developing Mathematical Reasoning. And if you're an elementary teacher, I have brand new problem string books out that go in depth in your grade level content with a problem string that have examples of teacher questions and back and forth. We tried really hard. In fact, we actually had a list for each book. Here are the things that could go wrong, and we're going to address it. So we made sure that, in each book, there were the discussions where like a kid has a wrong answer. How do you handle that? Or a kid says, I'm trying to even think of what the other ones were. The kids are blurting out. What do you do? Because that's sending the message. It's all about speed. So how do we slow things down? And so we took very specific moments and we kind of tried to say, this is a way that you could deal with that. Because you bring up a really good point. Most of us, if not all of us, we grew up, our prior experiences were in what I call fake math. Not to anybody's fault. It's the way we were all taught. It's the way our teachers were taught. We're in this kind of systemic thing. So what we don't have is experience doing what we just did, right? Like everybody listening right now has had one experience hearing that. What we really need is for you to be in a learning experience where that happens, where you feel it. Now you now have that as part of your psyche. So in the moment to moment decision making, now you have that to draw on. You might find it interesting whenever I create an asynchronous online workshop, which sounds terrible. We all lived through COVID. Horrible. But we were actually creating them before COVID because I was trying to get my message out to the world, but I refused to just talk at a computer. I thought that's a terrible learning experience. Like learning is this community of back and forth and negotiating meaning. And that's it. And like you brought up earlier, that's so much more meaningful and emotion and, all of that. But I finally was willing to do it when we came up with a design that was all about, we do a live in-person workshop with teachers and we film it. And then we break that up. So it's as if you were there. I just didn't call on you that time. We think it works really well. So you experience that 2-day workshop, and then we still add 3 modules because then we have to look back and look forward. So for example, in our build, I'm kind of talking about, do you want to hear about my workshops? I'm sort of excited about them.
Go for it.
So like in our Building Powerful Multiplication workshop, when that 2-day workshop starts, I'm building teachers' multiplicative reasoning, not how do you start this in 3rd grade. Like, I'm like, let's get you to now own multiplicative reasoning. And we build the 5 major multiplication strategies with the 6th that's a middle school one. We really build that in teachers. Now, I do it in such a way where it's not like I tell teachers, I build it in them. I use the teacher moves that I want them to use, but we don't talk about that part. We build it in them just like I wanted to build in their students. Now the 2 days are over. Then we look back in we do 3 major things. One is, we say, then how do you do this in 3rd grade? How do you start with kids? Because we didn't start there. And then also, where does it go in the future? What does it look like to do what we just did with polynomial multiplication? Because I'm K-12, so I have this, vertical perspective. I'm not going to do something in a younger grade that's going to mess us up later. None of that. Then we also look back at the tasks that we use to help teachers build, and we identify what's the difference between a rich task and a problem string, and why did we never do this, but we did lots of these things, and what does this mean, and what would that look like in your classroom? And then the last thing we do is my favorite. We look back at all the footage of people learning, and then we identify the teacher moves. So we'll have a short montage of me saying, could anybody add on to that? I wonder if anybody could add on to that. Oh, great start. Can anybody add on to that? And you have like 90 seconds of me doing that over and over and over. And then people go, oh, that's why we felt like we could say the little bit we knew, and we didn't have to have a complete answer because we knew it was part of our culture to ask somebody to add on to that. And it was completely okay and didn't mean I was stupid. It meant I had something worthwhile to contribute, and then someone else could add on to that. You see how that's a really intentional move? That doesn't make any sense if you haven't experienced it. Like I can say that, but until you've experienced it, it's not. And then teachers go, now they have the same ahas we were talking about mathematically. Now they have those ahas pedagogically. And they're like, oh, that was on purpose that you did that. Give me another one. What else did you do? And it's a whole module in the workshop is to identify those. Would you consider that I think in math ed, we have excellent expert teachers out there, teacher educators out there who are saying, we should have discourse in math. We should have longer wait time. We should ask better questions. But if we don't change the math, what is there to talk about? What better questions are there? Why does it matter if I wait on your answer? What matters is if I wait on your answer, yes, but on your explanation. But what's there to explain if you're mimicking an algorithm? So I think the math has to come first, along with Like, I'm not telling you the math, I'm building it in you the way I want you to build it in your students. And now you have that visceral experience to lean back on. And then we put forth, like, let's talk about those things. Okay, I kind of went on about that, but it's very exciting.
Yeah, you know, Pam, I listened to it and I'm like, oh man, math is all about emotions and feelings and how you get excited. You know, like we so often think about like numbers only, but I'm like, if you have this like emotional buy-in, I think that opens all the doors to like anything is possible.
Well, and real math is so interesting. It's so naturally intriguing. And when you are literally creating, not that I'm making you discover math on your own, but when you are using what you know to create, that is naturally intriguing. And like you just, you know, that brings out your pride and your emotion and your sense of self and agency. Like all of those things come into, not just circle. Yeah.
See, I wonder, Pam, like, you know, you are in the world of math and there are so many strategies out there. If you had to pick one, like what is one of your favorite mathematical strategies and why?
Well, I'm glad you said mathematical strategies, because strategy is a complicated word in math education, because we could be talking about a pedagogical strategy, a classroom management strategy, a questioning strategy, but you said mathematical strategy. So that helps me focus. I like that. And I'm probably going to lean on the one that we've already talked about a little bit, because people will be able to relate because we've done it. And it's the over strategy. Can I use something that's a bit too big to help me think about something that's a bit smaller than that? So for example, if I want to find something times 99, so yeah, like if I just asked you to pick an ugly 2-digit number, what would be your favorite ugly 2-digit number? You got one?
13. Oh.
Okay, 13. It's funny. Often it has a 7 in it. I was kind of surprised. No? You weren't thinking of it.
17. It's also ugly.
Either one. We could do 13. So if I wanted to find 99 13s, when I say that 99, like, do you get a gut instinct to go 100? Like, you almost can't stop yourself. If I go 99, you're like 100. Well, if you can think about 100 13s, so 113, is that 1300? 1300, yeah, or 1300. But I only want 99 13s.
Wow.
I have too much. How much too much?
I'm just having a aha moment here.
So we have 13 too much. Well, now I have to think about, what is 1,300 minus 13? Well, that's a brilliant place for us to be. We need kids thinking about what is 13 less than 1,300. And what, 10 less than 1,300 is 1,290. And then 3 less would be 1,287. And I wish I was writing this down, because you might find it interesting. When I actually do real math, I often keep track of my mental thinking. Like, I know we have said mental math means you have to do it on your head. No. So a wonderful elementary researcher who I give a ton of credit for my journey. She's part of the research I landed on early, and it was the lens through which I did everything else. And it was so important to me. It was Kathy Fosno. And she says, mental math does not mean you do it all in your head. Mental math means you do it with your head.
Oh, that's nice.
So it's completely legal to keep track of your mental thinking. But if you find yourself just mimicking something your third grade teacher taught you, maybe then put your pencil down and ask yourself, what relationships could I use? Then pick your pencil back up and keep track of those relationships. Anyway, there's a misconception that I like to kind of help people. You know, often, don't you think people feel a little bit less than when they can't do it all in their heads?
Yeah.
Well, when you were talking all through all those numbers, my brain immediately was like, it immediately was like, nope, can't do that. But if I was writing it down, I would feel a lot better.
Yeah, I probably went too fast. And here's another. I'll be honest. I use numbers that I use a lot because I can hold them better. If I was writing, I could use more less familiar numbers, and then I would be fine. But I'm using more familiar numbers so that I can hang on to them because I'm not writing. Yeah. So we should write. Everyone write. Write more.
You know, I feel like you gave us, like, I almost feel like I was in a restaurant and I tasted all those little starters and like, which one do I want to eat more of? So I wonder, like, you know, people who are listening into this podcast, like, where can they find out more? Like, where would you point them to? I know you mentioned a few things at the beginning, but could you tell us a little bit more?
Yes, thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, thanks. So we have a podcast, the Math is Figure-Outable podcast. I would invite you to listen to that. Kim, my co-host, was my kid's 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade teacher.
Oh,
So when I dove into the research and then dove into classrooms and started experimenting, funny story, there was my kid was in 2nd grade and my oldest was in 4th grade. And Kim was a 3rd grade teacher, and she heard what we were doing and she's like, I want in. So she dove in and we started working together, and Kim was the teacher where I started doing professional development with the teachers and training the school and then the district. And when I would go into classrooms, Kim's classroom is the one where I would say, wait, that's not what I said to do. What are you doing? And she would have improved on what we talked about. Anyway, so join us on the Math is Figure-Outable podcast to learn more. We also have the Math is Figure-Outable teacher Facebook group, so totally free, great community. It is a good community in this way. We monitor the group. So it's not one of those where anything goes. We push back on stuff that we disagree with. We're like, would you consider, we do it gently and nicely. But if you dive into that, you're more assured that things are going to be less chaotic and anything goes, and more like kind of what we're suggesting about math being figure-outable. So those are a couple free, great things. Also, today in here, we talked about the fact that there's only a small set of major relationships that lead to a small set of major strategies. If your listeners would be interested, we've put out a free ebook that lists those. You might be like, well, all right, Pam, you told us about the over strategy. We also did the 5 is half of 10 strategy, which is one of the 5 multiplication strategies. Because not only is 5 half of 10, but 50 is half of 100. You're like, what does that mean? Well, you don't have to know your 5s if you know your 10s, but you don't have to know your 50s if you know your 100s. So like if I wanted to find 50 times, what did we do earlier? 13? If I wanted to do 50 times 13, there's a few ways I could do that. But one way is I could do 113s, 1300, and then cut that in half. And that would be 50. Yeah.
I'm going to think about that 13 tonight and all the ways it can help.
Love it. Yeah. So if your listeners are interested, you could download that free ebook at Math is Figure-Outable. Figure has an E on it. mathisfigureoutable.com/big, BIG, because we think this is big. So mathisfigureoutable.com/big. And then if you, we'd love to have you continue on the journey with us. We have online asynchronous workshops, like I told you, all the way kindergarten, well, really pre-kindergarten. We work with three-year-olds. All the way up to high school teachers. We have a workshop for whatever you teach. And we also have a coaching program for teachers. And then very important for leaders, we have a coaching program for leaders. So with teachers, we talk about working with students and moving the math forward. And with leaders, we talk about working with adults and moving systems forward. So those are some ways that you can continue. Oh, I probably should mention, we just launched Developing Mathematical Reasoning, Avoiding the Trap of Algorithms. It's a bestseller. How exciting is that?
Amazing.
In a small niche, right? Like some math educators, but hey, I'll take it.
That was amazing.
Exciting. And it's kind of fun because it is the first of a 5-book series. So Developing Mathematical Reasoning K-12 is kind of how to avoid the trap of algorithms. It's like algorithms can trap kids into using less sophisticated reasoning. Then the K2 book, I'm not sure when this is going to drop, but comes out in September of 25. And the 3-5 book will come out 6 months after that. And then a 6-8 book, and then a 9-12 book. And those books are, let's dive into the nitty gritty. How do you actually do this in those grade bands?
Oh man, that sounds a lot of treasures to discover.
I feel very inspired.
Oh, wonderful.
Even when you were just talking about multiplying 13 by 50, I was like, ooh, what if we did?
I know, right?
Yeah.
Do you want to just have the tiniest bit more fun?
Yes.
So let's see. If 113s is, I wish we were writing this down, is 1300, then 50 13s would be half of that. So half of 1300, I'm thinking about that as half of 1200 is.
Well, and I thought 1400.
And you went over. Nicely done. Did we both land on 650 then?
Agreed.
Okay. So if 50 13s is 650, I wonder if we could think about 51 13s.
Ooh.
Would we need 650 and 13?
Yes.
One more 13. So 650 and 13 is at 663.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Could we also think about 49 13s?
Yes.
by going one less 13 than where were we? 1350, I think. It'd be so much better if we had this written down. But
Yeah.
we want kids to think about 13 less. And y'all, what we just did was prove that not only do you not have to know your 5s if you know your 10s, or your 50s if you know your 100s, but you could, so we can multiply 5 times anything, 50 times anything, 51 and 49 times anything.
That's awesome.
Reasoning, using what you know, and if you know the major strategies, that's true for all numbers.
That's super cool.
That
Super
is
cool.
Super cool.
Yeah. It's like my brain just did some math, like brain
Yeah,
gym.
sure. That was a lot of math right there. Well done. Well done.
Pam, I think we could talk to you for hours. I mean, there's so much we want to talk to you about. But to end this podcast, we have 5 quick questions that you can only answer in 1 sentence. So here's your little challenge.
Okay, I'm ready. I'm ready.
All right. First one is, what is your go-to brain snack?
Brain snack?
Yeah.
Dark chocolate. Easy. Yep, dark chocolate.
All right. Finish the sentence. Math is ...
That's easy. Maths is figure-outable.
What would you tell someone who has math anxiety, Pam?
I would tell them that it completely makes sense that they have maths anxiety with fake math, but I actually bet they're probably good, pretty darn good at real mathing. And if I can get you real mathing, I bet we can decrease your maths anxiety almost instantly. Because it's not about rote memorizing stuff and spitting it out quick. Just use what you know and build on that. And you know a lot.
I love that. No, that's so nice. I'm going to put this printed out and show everybody so they're like all. Next one. What is your favorite math tool or math manipulative?
Oof. It can be a tool. Does it need to be physical or can it?
Anything that you like to use.
Okay, I'm going to say a ratio table.
And why?
Ratio tables set me free to really be flexible using relationships in such powerful ways that I had never thought of. And I would have used a ratio table when we just did our 49 times 13. I would have had 1 to 13, 100 to 130, to 1300, 50 to 650. And then I would have had the 51 to whatever that was and the 49 to whatever that was. And we would have kept track of those equivalent ratios on a ratio table. And what's brilliant as a secondary math teacher is then I can take that right into solving proportions, because those were all equivalent ratios that we just used. Now, it's kind of baby proportional reasoning because it's one. Oh, this is supposed to be one sentence. Sorry.
We didn't notice.
I'll finish in one sentence. It was baby proportional reasoning because it was 1 to 13. So just in middle school, then we have things like 2 to 3 or 4 to 5 or 6 to 2 or whatever. And now we do the same kind of scaling in tandem, and we actually build proportional reasoning, which is what we should build in middle school, not just having kids get answers by cross multiplying divide. Yeah.
Nice. And last one, Pam, what is your one piece of advice you can give to our listeners?
My piece of advice is to wonder, is it possible that what you learned was actually not the mental actions of a mathematician? It was more rote memorizing and mimicking. Is it possible that maybe things you've always kind of done when you couldn't remember the rule, or done when you've been out in the world and you haven't had a calculator, and the things that you've tried to do in your, those are actually the mental actions of a mathematician, and we can help you develop those more and more so that you are thinking and reasoning more sophisticatedly, like a mathematician actually does.
I love that. There's so much hope in that kind of advice and sentence. Like anybody can do it. I really love that.
Oh, please leave with so much hope and encouragement and excitement and energy and wow, like what is possible? Humans are amazing.
Amazing. Well, Pam, I definitely feel like you sparked that fire all around us. I feel like it's like an explosion of like excitement and, just wanting to dive in deeper. So really, thank you so much for being our special guest today. It was very inspiring. I think the excitement, that's the word that comes to my mind. But thank you so much for being our special guest. And we're excited to see what else you're going to do to inspire the world around you.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me on. You guys are amazing.